Yeah, speaking of abusive relationships, actually, Chris Hemsworth was talking a little bit about being Thor and his work on Love and Thunder, and I thought it was fantastic because, yeah, he just straight up admitted that it sucked. He did an interview with GQ recently, and he said, basically apologizing for the movie being terrible. He says, "I think we had a bit too much fun. It just became a little bit too silly." And
True.
well, it's really difficult to argue with them on that one. It did. I think the only person that really had fun on that one was probably Taika Waititi.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen the backstage stuff? He just seemed like he was just making it up as he went along. So that was probably pretty fun for him. He just came up with an idea, and they just spent millions of dollars to make his random idea he just came up with happen.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to be on set, and it's just like, well, I've got unlimited resources, like whatever, like this army of people that's around me can just make my wildest, ridiculous dreams come true. Yeah, of course, you can have fun with that. It's just, wow, it doesn't result in a great movie.
Apparently, with zero oversight too.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with Ragnarok. It bought him a lot of credit within Marvel, I think, and they basically just give him a creative blank check with this one. And well, you see what he produced. It was an interesting movie.
Yes.
But it does. I don't know, man. It's not very often that these Marvel actors like speak out against their own franchise. Generally, they're pretty unified on this stuff. And you know, Hemsworth hasn't left officially. Like he's still technically part of it. He could be doing another Thor movie at some point. So the fact that even he was like openly critical of it, I think that's kind of an interesting insight, really, to where his head's at.
I think he's not contracted, as I understand it. He isn't currently contracted to do anymore, but he's not said he's not coming back. So I guess the fact he's not contracted allows him to speak a bit more openly. I was actually reading a little bit more of the interview because he's not just talking about Thor, also Ant-Man Quantumania, which he says he hasn't seen, but he saw enough of the adverts to wonder why they turned Ant-Man into a space epic. He said, that's the trick. You have to separate all the stories. The moment it's like, your world is in danger, the entire universe, it's like, yeah, so it was in the last 24 films.
Yeah.
It's a good comment, and he's right about that. Maybe we should put him in charge, because he does seem to have a basic understanding of how these things work.
Well,
I
Drinker,
think
do you remember the open bar where I told you the stakes were multiversal? It was just like,
Yeah,
again. Like, yep, again.
it's just wearying. Yeah, give me like one character, literally one single solitary soul that I really care about. Put them in danger, and I'll be more invested than the fate of the entire multiverse with its uncountable trillions of universes that are part of it. That's the way the human mind works. We gravitate towards things that we personally identify with.
I think Chris Hemsworth also knows his worth, and Marvel, they need him more than he needs them right now. He's made plenty of money on these films.
They need a goddamn miracle at this point.
Oh, absolutely. You know, he knows he's one of the last remaining original cast. He knows that Chris Hemsworth is a selling point for people going to see the movie because it is the original Thor. He's doing very successfully with Extraction. The sequel's just about to come out for Extraction. And he's a liked person. You know, he's like Chris Pratt. He does have a good reputation. He's got a good reputation of the way that he communicates, the way that he treats fans. And, you know, there's a lot of goodwill that goes alongside him. I think he realizes they need me more than I need them. And if he never returns back to a Marvel film, I don't think he's going to miss a heartbeat on that. He made his feelings about Thor known pretty early on.
Yeah.
That he was not happy with Taika Waititi's direction. He was not happy with the direction of Thor as a character. And so this doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Maybe the Ant-Man comment, that's quite interesting because he's going a little bit out of his out of his own franchise there, but still within Marvel. But you know what I mean. And I think he's like, I don't care, you know, if they don't call me back or if I don't agree to contract terms for another film, no skin off my nose. What are you gonna do? Bring back fucking Jane Foster? That film will crater.
I mean, he said like I wouldn't work with any more mad geniuses when it came to making movies, and it's like, well, I wonder who he could be referring to there. Yeah, man, it's just at this point in his career, because he's been doing Thor for what, 10 years now? More than 10 years, probably.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's maybe an element of
Avengers was 2012, so that what was it? Thor must have been 2 years before that.
Yeah, you're talking like, that's a long time to be playing that character. And like when you think about, Robert Downey Jr.'s gotten out, Chris Evans is out, although he probably shouldn't have because it's like all he's got going. Scarlett Johansson's out. They all have now moved on to other things because that's what you do as an actor. You can't just keep playing the same role forever. And he's a pretty decent star in his own right now. He can carry a movie. Like he's got the Extraction franchise that could well become a big franchise for him.
I think that'll be.
Potentially.
It looks like going the way of John Wick, probably, where it'll maybe be a sort of staple. I can't imagine
so,
making those films are probably fucking with him in terms of Marvel films, where you're with a team that are very passionate trying to create a specific experience versus a bunch of insane nonsense with no schedule and a madman director just being like, lol, what if we said poo?
Yeah.
I think as well for most actors, they'd maybe rather be playing roles that are a bit more serious that they can get their teeth into and actually do some acting. Versus like just clowning around and being basically the butt of every joke. It's like I feel like Chris Pratt's gone down that road as well. I feel like he's just done with the whole like playing goofy like Star-Lord. I want to do like more interesting stuff. He's got the Terminal list going on, and like he kind of seems to be more interested in doing more serious action movies. And maybe there's just an element of like, okay, being this sort of jokey, goofy superhero characters was fine for a while because it was good for my career. I'm done with that crap now. I'm getting older. I want to do more serious stuff.
There's
nothing integral to the superhero genre that has to be unchanging silliness. I think that's more a comment on the failure of the imagination of Marvel generally, to actually allow their characters to evolve to more serious places and allow these actors to have a more varied, a greater variety of roles playing the same character. I mean, if you think about what they did over a long period of time with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, they were able to give him a variety of different takes on that character and a general progression of that character up to a point where he was, he begins as a reasonably sort of action hero-y type person, and by the end he's a gritty, wised up but quite cynical person who's ready to bow out as a character, not just as an actor. And they allowed him a bit more development in terms of the parts that were being written for him. And it's a bit of a shame with, say, Thor and Chris Hemsworth that they do seem to just think, well, Thor's thing is silly, and that's all it can ever be, it's all it will ever be, so we're not going to make any new grounds with this character anymore. I don't think it's essential to a superhero story that these people remain static, but it does seem to be the approach they're taking.
I mean, the closest they got within the MCU, I think, was probably Tony Stark, where he actually got a decent arc as a character and a fairly serious climax to it all. And he went
the Winter Soldier and Civil War were the most serious the MCU got.
Yeah,
and I fucking miss it, dude.
Yeah,
I really do.
Because they're two of the best films out there. The Avengers on top of that, Infinity War. But in Infinity War, look at Thor in Infinity War. He was a serious character and he was superb. He was one of the best aspects. Yeah.
That was my favorite portion of Thor's eras. It was when he finally started taking everything very seriously and wanted revenge.
Yeah, and particularly when he landed at Wakanda, he was just like, right, I'm gonna fuck you all up, you fucks. I'm after
bring me Thanos.
Bring me Thanos. He's ready.
just a death machine. It's great.
This demigod is ready. He's ready to do battle, and I liked it at the beginning of Endgame where he just fucking cuts his head off.
But don't you understand? No, it was important that he became fat and just a loser who cries constantly and suffers panic attacks and he's wearing a big soiled
bathrobe. Wouldn't it be funny if you were just a dude?
Yeah.
Ha ha.
That's still one of the weirdest references in the history, considering the fact the actor who played him was in the series, like the MCU. It's still one of the strangest things they ever decided to do.
Yeah. There's a lot of issues with Endgame, I think, and
wouldn't be
Thor
shocked if they
particular.
forgot that actor was in it, that Jeff Bridges was in it. Was in the
probably. It's so far back in their history. Yeah, like there'll be a lot of writers working there now. They just have no clue what happened in the first
They've got to
phase.
have done that. Like some new writer has been like, can we bring in Jeff Bridges at some point? And probably someone was like, oh shit, we already did.
Well, that's kind of like Taika Waititi.
Yeah, when he was like,
yeah.
I want to work with Natalie Portman and bring her into Star Wars.
Yeah.
Look at him like, what the hell's wrong with you?
That one's a bit different because at least I would actually more understand the Jeff Bridges one because that's Iron Man. That's 2008. That's the first one. I can buy making that mistake, but Natalie Portman in the fucking that was half of Star Wars at one point. What do you? How do you make that mistake? But then again, of course, I don't believe Taika Waititi cares about Star Wars either.
No. Have you noticed what have been very successful new franchises in the last couple of years or so? Extraction, John Wick is definitely one. Terminal List, Reacher. Can you find the common denominator with those four massive, big franchises? We actually have a macho, masculine lead man again, and that's been missing drastically. Thor, all of the men in Phase 4 were cucked. We know that they were pushed to one side to push these failed characters. There's a reason why those characters failed in the comics, and there's a reason why they failed on the big screen, because you have the same flaws that you have on the big screen that you do with the comics, because these characters are not coming from the right place. They're coming from places where we have to drag people down in an effort to bring those characters up, and it doesn't work. It's crabs in a bucket. Whereas when you have characters like John Wick, when you got characters like in the Extraction, in Reacher, in Terminal List, these are very flawed characters. Flawed characters that have a very specific arc about them, and people gravitate towards that because there's an actual journey with the character. There's no journey with this MCU right now. No journey, because there can be no flaws with their new characters that they want to push. There can't be for them, and it makes for boring. And I don't want to use the word entertainment, so let's just say it makes for boring films.
Boring content.
Yeah, boring content.
Are you telling me you're not excited for Ironheart? You bigot. He's off.